Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Craig Bielik, and lucky you. You have joined us here on Junction City today, and man, do we have a show for you today. I have no idea how we're going to squeeze this all into just about 15 minutes, because this is a wonderful story, and my guests today are Rhonda Lauritsen. I hope I got that right.
That's right.
And then Heidi Posnian.
Yeah.
I got that right. I was really nervous about saying those last names. Coming from a guy whose last name is Bielik. That's been screwed up in every way possible. But we're here today to talk about books. Do you like books? Of course you do. And of course, we're here today to talk about one book in particular. And this is A Child in Berlin that was written by these two fine ladies right here. And you guys, this is a story. It has everything. I don't care what it is you want in a book. This has it all. Other than sword fight. I don't think there's any sword fights in this book.
We should have added some of that.
But that's okay. Well, for the next edition, we can put that. No, this is Heidi's true story of her life, which has been remarkable, to say the least. And you are very lucky and persistent and I don't know how else to say it. She's a remarkable person to be sitting here. And we'll get into all of that. But I highly recommend this book. I highly recommend that you buy it. We'll talk a little bit more about how you can get your hands on it. But I want to know, first off, I've known both of you kind of a little bit for many years. How did you two get into each other's circle? How did that happen?
Well, I started writing biographies and local family business stories. So I'd done the story for Norma Keir. You probably know the Keir family.
I know the Keir family, and I know the Keir story.
Yeah, so I had done Norma's story, and Norma and Heidi were friends. So Norma called me one day and said, I have a friend. She has a story. I think you need to talk to her. And at the time, I was kind of busy and didn't really have a lot of capacity and didn't feel qualified to write a World War II story like in Berlin.
Yeah.
But I met Heidi, and we thought maybe we'd just do like some oral history, and she captivated me. Her story, I just thought, this needs to be told. It's important, and we need to do it right. And so we spent 5 years working on the writing and the oral history, and then another year in publishing.
That is a significant amount of time to devote to any project in the world. But and I have to tell you, it was worth it. Because you did end up telling a great story, all that. And one of the big questions I have is, Heidi, I would never dare ask how old you are, because that is not polite.
I don't mind.
But I know that you're older than me, okay, and I'm pretty old. But so how old are you?
I'm 89.
Heidi, how in the world did you remember all of the things that went into this book, the detail? I mean, I'm 64 and I can't remember where my car keys are. And
I can't remember what I had for breakfast.
But you remembered things, names and locations and even smells.
Yes.
And the feeling of material and things like that to get into this book. How did you get those resources? Where did that come from?
I don't know. It just all of a sudden happened. And the smells, I think, even if you were, someplace where I don't know how to explain it.
The smell goes to the oldest part of your memory. I mean, smell is integrally related to memory.
Right.
But how do you also say about happy childhoods? When people ask her, how did you remember so much? She'll say, well, did you have a happy childhood? And they say, sure. And she says, well, that's probably why you don't remember as much.
Oh.
It's true.
You remember things. Go ahead.
You remember the things that are either really terrible or really good.
Right. The joyful or the hurtful.
Exactly. And I guess my life was both joyful or hurtful. So my emotions were constantly up and down.
Definitely. We could do 10 episodes of your life, but today we're going to focus on the portion of the book that I feel was extremely interesting, not that a lot of it wasn't. And it has to do with, first off, you were born in Germany, right?
German-Polish border.
That's correct. That's correct. I'm glad. See, she can remember
So it was
everything.
technically Germany, but it was a really ethnically Polish village just inside the German border. So it had gone to Germany after the First World War. So she's ethnically Polish and Czech.
Right. And you spent a lot of time with extended family, but But the book focuses quite a bit on your relationship with your mother. And your mother was a remarkable woman in her own right.
Very much so.
Talk to me a little bit about your mother.
Well, she was very beautiful, glamorous. She was an opera singer.
Imagine that.
She was an opera singer, and she loved the theater, and she was always doing interesting things.
She grew up in a very small village, but got a scholarship
Exactly.
for opera to go into Berlin.
Exactly. She's got to the Staatsopera in Berlin.
Yeah.
That was a big deal.
Oh, Berlin at that point was
Yeah.
the heart, or the actual height of performing
And the
arts.
capital, too, of Germany.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, the state opera was just a stone's throw from Hitler's seat of power.
Right. Right. And she was a single mom.
Well, she got into... she broke up with my dad.
Yes.
She left him, so that's all going to be in the book.
No, that is in the book. So you were lucky enough to have her mother, your maternal grandmother,
grandmother,
who took you in and took you under her wing, and a lot of your memories are about her, which is
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah.
But you didn't stay with her forever, not for very long.
No, she... because of circumstances, my mother took me to an orphanage and left me there. So that was hard.
Yes, you spent a lot of early years there, but not forever, because Mom came back.
Yep. That's what people always want to know. Well, did she ever pick you up? Yeah, she must have.
Well, she not only picked you up, but she took you to the city. And
Took me to Berlin.
a small girl growing up in a tiny village. That must have been quite an experience.
Oh, yeah, because I like going barefoot all the time, and now I'm in a big city, and I had to wear socks and shoes, and so I would sneak them off and go barefooted when I go out to play.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, going from a small village to a city would be a shock for anyone, but you happened to land in the city right at the beginning of World War II in Berlin.
In Berlin, they had running water in the bathrooms.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I didn't even think about
You
that.
didn't have to go to the outhouse.
So you were in Berlin, and what were your first impressions of what life was like under wartime?
Well, at the beginning, it wasn't that hard. You know, the sirens would go off and you go down to the bomb shelters, and it was kind of fun there because there were other kids there to play with, and we ran around and had... But as the war got worse, and, you know, more bombing, and then it wasn't so much fun anymore.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to give too much away because I really want people to read the book, but your mother was a remarkable person, and you'll get a chance to read about her having dinner with who?
Adolf Hitler.
Exactly.
Well, it was a party, a dinner party, and well, she wasn't having dinner personally with him.
Right.
Because she was dating this officer, and so he said, "Come on, let's go." So she's got herself all dressed up pretty, and she went, and
Yeah.
then she was telling her girlfriends later on. I mean, it was a big deal,
Sure.
you know, for somebody to go to Hitler's dinner.
Sure.
So yeah, so she was telling her friends that when everybody sat down and he sat down, he noticed my mother, and he took another second look at her.
Your mother was quite a looker.
And she must have been, yeah.
She must have been.
Yeah.
She must have been. And again, I don't want to give too much away from the book, but and I'll let you read the circumstances as to why this happened. But
Okay.
you ended up separated from your mother.
Yeah, well, they had to send the children away because the bombing was getting so bad. And so it was safer to just send you out with relatives out in the country because, you know, nothing was happening in the country. So the bombing was all in the city. And so sometimes they just put a sign around the child's neck, you know, and put you on the train, and then the people picked you up on the other side where you got to stay. And yeah, I can't find all the words. She's so
That's
much
okay.
better. She's so
That's
much
okay.
better.
Well, she's our wordsmith. She's our wordsmith.
I think she can read my mind.
Rhonda, what was it like for you to hear these stories for the first time and firsthand?
Well, Heidi's an amazing storyteller. And she didn't give away the ending. She told it to me. She let it unfold. So there were these moments when I'm like, wait, your mother had dinner with Adolf Hitler. Or, later when we find out that she's alone in Berlin. So her mother brought her back from the countryside. They were alone during the final months of the war. And then her mother wasn't there. And again, we won't give away why, but Heidi was alone in a bombed out apartment at the age of 9.
I was going to say it's really important to talk about how young she was, because
9.
at the age of 9, I don't know that I could have made a mud pie. And you were surviving on your own under gunfire and bombings and all of those sorts of things.
Yeah, but when you're the only child, you're always with adults. So I've never felt like I was a child. I always felt like I was one of the grown-ups.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew how to fend for myself and how to amuse myself. In fact, this morning I was thinking again when I was a child, and I thought, what did I do for games that I played in the house? In the book, I have all the ones when we were outside. But we had cutout dolls that you could, I remember cutting those out, and then you could dress them and undress them. And yeah, we had and games that we played, cards. And
It's remarkable that children can be that resilient.
yeah,
And obviously you knew you were in danger,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
but you still had time and the wherewithal to make a paper doll
Oh, yeah.
and play with that.
Yeah, yeah.
That is an incredible
And
story.
when I was living by myself, if I was hungry, my mother, because she was in the black market, she had a sack of beans underneath the bed, a sack of lentil, and beans, all dried. And then I would make little packages. I would take like a book and make a little box out of it and put beans in there, and I'd take it over to some neighbors, and I'd give that to them, and then they fix a dinner, and then I got to stay and have dinner with them.
Oh, wow.
So,
Wow. Boy, you were resourceful.
yeah,
You wouldn't be sitting here if you were
Yeah.
not.
yeah.
Well, there is so much more to that story.
Oh, yeah.
And again, we could talk to Heidi for a very long time because we haven't even touched on how you ended up in the United States, your modeling career. That's right, modeling career. Okay, your ownership of a Utah landmark, the Shooting Star Saloon in Huntsville,
Yeah.
that you had for how long?
24 years.
Right. And all the adventures that came with that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Was that your recipe? Was that your hamburger recipe?
No, I just perfected it.
Okay.
It was kind of already, there's a long story with that too, so.
Yeah, we should do a whole story about that. You should write a book about that, the hamburger up there, because it is literally world famous. I'm not exaggerating or anything like that.
I know.
I've had enough of them, that's for sure. Well, not enough. I could still have more. And you somehow remembered all of this remarkable story, and Rhonda put it all into words and that sort of thing. There's a short bit in the book about how, there were some dialogue things and that you had to make assumptions on and all that.
Sure.
But it's true. This is a true story.
Yes. And Heidi's memory was amazing, the details that you can read. And then I added some historical context, right? Because a child or even people in Berlin wouldn't have known all the things happening in the broader world. So we added the timeline and some of the historical details to really make it complete for today's readers. But we didn't make anything up. I mean, other than, some liberties with like dialogue, but none of the scenes or actual things that happened were made up.
Yeah. What's been the reaction in your friends and family to the book? Have you had old friends that came up to you and said, I never knew?
Not just that, but for some reason, people now, they want to talk to me and want to know more. And in fact, when we had this the other night, that lady she was from the Ukraine, and she took my hand. Tears were just running down. She had me in tears too, and people now, they can relate to those kind of things, And so, yeah, I have a lot of phone numbers. Please call me back, and I need to talk to you some more, because they want to know how come that I have such a good attitude after all those things that I've gone through. And I usually tell people, don't keep remembering when something bad happens to you. It's just baggage that you carry with you, and you can't live your life and be successful or happy if you constantly carry that baggage around and feel sorry for yourself and complain about it. And that's what I've done. Even when I was a child, I always would say to myself, no matter how hard it was, I would say, okay, in a year from now, I bet I won't even remember what happens. So I'm just going to hang in there, put it aside, and go on with my life.
Sage advice from someone wise
Even when I was
who
a
has led
when
an
I was-
amazing life.
Even when I was a child,
Yeah.
I already felt that way.
Oh.
And that's what got me through all these years with everything.
There you go, folks. That's your advice right now from someone that has been through it and all that.
Yeah.
I'm happy that you were able to put that into
Yeah.
to get it into print
Yeah.
and get those memories out there. Again,
Yeah.
it's an interesting story.
Yeah.
Interesting story. And Rhonda, how did you go about getting a book deal, and how did all that work?
We were just so lucky. I can't believe, because usually books like this don't find a traditional publisher. And then, they sell a few copies, but this has been picked up all over the world. We've been getting TV interviews like today, and from some big news outlets seen by 1 million people, and in Europe, and the community outpouring has just been astonishing. We've had a couple of standing room only events with 300 people at different libraries, and we talked to somebody the other day that said, everyone I know has read it, and they're just coming up and saying, your story means so much to me, and I couldn't put it down.
Yeah.
And has it been a success? I mean, you're doing well, I would think.
Far more than we ever could have expected. I mean,
Right.
you just don't expect a book like this to take off, but it's touching people's hearts, and it's timely for our day. It's timely because the 80th anniversary of the fall of Berlin is coming up, and Heidi's one of the few survivors. So she was old enough to remember, but young enough to still be alive. And so she can tell a firsthand eyewitness account of those historic events. So she's really special.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, and it's timely too in that there have been a number of Netflix series based on people that survived events through World War II. Stories, All the Light We Can't See, and
Yes.
a few of those others. Have you watched any of those?
I have, yeah. I've watched several movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's got to be someone out there that's reading this book thinking about turning it into some sort of visual movie. And by the way, I'm Heidi's agent, so please call me. Don't call her out there. No, how would you feel about that? What if this became a 10-part Netflix series?
That would be very touching. That would really, in fact, sometimes I'm hoping that somebody buys the book and reads it and says, oh, I was a child. Maybe I've known Heidi when she was young. Wouldn't that be something nice?
Boy, wouldn't it?
Wouldn't that be something?
Yeah.
So
My
I
neighbors were from Holland, and I heard firsthand their accounts of living in Holland during the German occupation and being shot at and food being scarce and all of those sorts of things. And Holland is close to Germany, but a long ways. But I'll check with her and see if she remembers you or something like that. Who do you want to have play you in the movie? Do you have any ideas?
No. Whoever's got enough gumption like I have.
Well, wouldn't that be wonderful?
Yeah.
Well, if you want to know more about Heidi's story, and you certainly do, and here is the website right here where you can check it out, or just drop down to your local bookstore and pick this book up right here. Rhonda has immense talent for bringing a story like this to life, because it's not easy. You can write it all down, but if you've never written anything of great heft, you know that you've got to keep it engaging, and you have to make sure that you tell it right. And I think you've done it right. And Heidi being here with you shows
sure
you that
has.
she thinks she's done that. We want all of you to make sure that you read that book. If you've got any more interest in that, check out that website. You have to. And we're going to have Heidi back, because there's so much more to talk about here. There's just so much more. And one of the reasons we didn't talk a whole lot about the ending of the book is I haven't read it. I'm getting there. I'm almost there. You can see my bookmark.
You have to know what happens to this little girl and
I
her mother.
know.
It's a nail biter.
I know. As a parent, that freaks me out.
Oh, I know. As a parent writing it,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, that does.
We had our days where we would just be all choked up and crying. And
Did you have a notepad, or were you putting it on a computer? Or?
I recorded her voice.
Oh, wow.
So
I even got a song that she recorded
You have a song?
that I'm singing.
You were singing a song to her?
One of my mother's songs.
Do you have a second for her to sing?
Are
Nearly
you
My
kidding
Lane?
me? Are you
This
kidding
is
me?
such
Is
a
there
good
any
song.
better way to end this episode than with a song?
Can I give some context for this song?
Absolutely.
This is the quintessential World War II song. So Marlene Dietrich was German.
Yes.
And she ended up coming to America and being like the movie star of her day.
Oh, yes.
And this was the song that she made famous, and the Germans loved it, and the Allies loved it. Everyone across the world loved this song on both sides of the war. So and Heidi's mother would sing it.
Oh, we have to hear it. Would you share it, please?
Now?
Yes, sing
Yes,
Nearly My Lane.
Right now.
You can't lead us to that and then not sing it.
Absolutely.
I need a drink of water. Okay, no, it's okay. Vor der Kaserne, vor dem großen Tor, stand eine Laterne und steht sie noch davor. Und sollen die Leute uns wiedersehen, wenn wir bei der Laterne stehen, wie einst Lili Marleen, wie einst Lili Marleen.
I mean, how can you follow that? I really can't. I was going to do my Marlene Dietrich impression, falling in love again. Remember that from that movie? Yeah. Well, you guys, you lucky people joining us on Junction City today. Thank you, Heidi. Thank you, Rhonda. I wish you guys continued success.
Thank you.
It's wonderful to have people on here that have done something really, really great. And thank you again. And we'll have her back. Until then, we will see you at the next Junction City today. And please get this book and read it.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Craig.